a very quick, short introduction of who I am and why I wanted to hop on here and share with you today the 5 ways to break free from the good girl programming. And ultimately, if you don't know me, I am a passionate person who is here to share how to create more happiness in the world. I am an author of a book called Unstuck for Women, which is all about helping women to shut down the spirals, and men too. The book is really applicable for everybody. Um, but I have this huge vision of helping women because I know just how stuck I was before. And when I figured out a few things through a lot of trial and error, I figured out a lot of things, and I just really want to share with other people who are feeling stuck, who are feeling trapped by the limitations of the world, of the conditioning of their past, so they can become free, so they can break out of survival mode and start truly thriving. And so ultimately, my vision is to create massive impact, to help more people to learn how to love themselves and accept themselves for who they are, which is not only going to change their inner world, but absolutely create a ripple effect that is going to change the world around them, the relationships they have, the experiences that they have. And ultimately, my vision is to create change in the world at large. So today I wanted to come here and share my top 5 ways for how to break free from that good girl conditioning so that you can finally become the empowered leader of your destiny. I conducted a small poll about which good girl conditioning impacts your life the most. And so we talked about being nice, this people pleasing, over giving, and wearing masks, because we want to hide those pieces that other people might not think are so great about us. I talked about being enough, which leads often to having to prove our worth, earn our value, work hard, strive for perfection so that we can measure up and somehow reach this pinnacle of being enough. That often sort of displays as perfectionism. The next one was about being attractive and desirable and, appearing in a way that is pleasing to other people. And then the last one is about being manageable. This one is really about adhering to the rules, following what we are told to do, repressing or hiding emotions so that we don't appear as too much or too sensitive or too whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter. Anyways, the results of the poll were a little all over the place, and I'm not actually surprised. The results were a bit mixed. And I get this because it's really hard to choose just one. This conditioning is so strong. And honestly, I myself have felt the pressure of every last one of these things. And then there's also some of you, thank you, Jenny, for your comment, who bucked the system and rebelled hard against the whole idea of being a good girl, right? And instead decided to rebel and show up as the bad girl, which to me is just 2 separate sides of the same coin. It's a different result of the same limiting conditioning. It is the expectations, the shoulds, the need to be perfect, needing to be pleasing to the male gaze, not too loud, not too emotional, not too bossy, not too independent, not too weird, not too needy, not too rebellious. So much shoulding, so much shame, and so many damn boxes and requirements to fulfill that we honestly cannot help but end up feeling like we are both far too much and yet still never enough at the same time. So in this conversation, I want to unpack some of this so that we can finally, dislodge ourselves, break free from this, get out of that box and find that freedom that we're all seeking. So I'll be sharing 5 ways for you to break free from the good girl conditioning. And like I say, the good girl conditioning is just the rules that we're expected to adhere to, the expectations from society that as a woman, you will show up in a certain way. And whether you adhered to those rules and felt yourself small in a box, or whether you said, fuck the rules and just went for it, these things are still going to be really applicable to you. And when you can get unstuck from the survival mode, then you can finally start operating in conscious creation mode, which is honestly about taking back your power so that you can go ahead and create the life, relationship, business impact of your dreams. Now, I want to say we're going to go pretty rapid fire through these 5 things, and there's absolutely no way I can cover everything related to this topic. There are probably 1,000 tangents. So bear with me and go ahead and ask questions in the comments below. In fact, if you're watching, let me know you're watching. Say hi. I'd love to know if the comments are working. If you have questions as we go, I will try to answer them. But if I can't get to them or I can't see the comments, which sometimes happens on these Facebook Lives, then I will get back to you as soon as I am able. Excuse me. And also, as always, I just want to say I don't have all of the answers. You know, I'm just a girl who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And as a result, I just truly want to share, because I know that together we might be able to change the world, from the inside out. So with that said, I would love to simply invite you to try on the ideas, take what resonates and leave the rest. All perspectives are welcomed. Even more than that, all perspectives and questions are invited to be shared here, as long as they are expressed respectfully. So with no further ado, let's hop in to number 1. And the first one is all about prioritizing your relationship with self. This shouldn't come as a surprise to any of you if you've been following me. I've been passionately telling everybody how very important that relationship with self is, because our relationship with ourself is actually the foundation for all of the other relationships that we have. And I don't even just mean relationships with other people. And I certainly don't just mean romantic relationships, but I mean relationships with the world at large, right? The relationship you have with your body, the relationship you have with food, right? All of these things are all reflected from the inside out. So as a good girl, you likely learned to prioritize the needs of others before your own, right? And given that this love that you're seeking actually comes from within, we have basically been put into this distraction where we are distracted at this need to prioritize other needs before our own. So type yes in the chat, whether you're watching live or on replay, if you've ever done something that you didn't really want to do because you felt you had to. And by this, I mean, you ended up prioritizing someone else's needs at the detriment of your own. Now, I know any mom is listening, you have done this, right? We have had to do this because our children can be really helpless. But when we can get into a pattern of doing this repeatedly is when we can really start to struggle. So in order to break free from this patterning, this conditioning, truly we have to start figuring out how to prioritize our own needs so that they can too be met. Now, remember here, taking care of yourself is not selfish, despite what you may have been told. There is a whole lot of conditioning around the selfish thing, and that giving is selfless and taking care of your own needs is perceived as selfish. And I want to say that's completely backwards. And the truth is it's necessary to go first and be a tiny bit, quote unquote, selfish in order to become an empowered leader. And I don't mean, again, the flip side of this. This is not taking care of your own needs at the detriment of others. But, especially as a mama out there, we often need a reminder that in order to do, show up and be the best that we can be, we have to go first. And we do that by leading the way, showing the way. So that is how we can become the empowered leader and take control, take back power in our own life. You also really, it's crucial that you actually take some time in this relationship with yourself to care for yourself, to give yourself that deep soul care that you need. And I'm not talking about pedicures or a hot bath, although those things are really nice. I mean, taking that time to listen, to ask the questions, create the space, and then hold some quiet in order to hear the answers that are going to come within. It's also pretty important to learn how to set up and uphold boundaries. This is really crucial because if we don't do this, we are not likely to have our needs met. We are likely to have our needs trampled on by other people who don't understand or aren't willing to respect our boundaries. So boundaries are a huge part of this. As well, we need to really learn how to effectively use our voice because we need to be able to communicate our needs in order for them to be met. And this also includes, perhaps especially, learning how to say no when it's necessary. Now you might be thinking, Christy, what if I don't know what my needs are? I've been there too. And if that's the case, then all the more reason to take a little bit of time just for you to foster that connection within. The truth is, you are a powerful creator of your experience, and you alone are the one that holds the key to your transformation. Ultimately, that permission slip to let go of the struggling or the shame or the suffering and the guilt and all of the things that are uncomfortable and unpleasing, the permission slip comes from you. And so I invite you to, at least for a moment, set it down, breathe, and know that it's all going to work out. Developing a loving relationship with yourself, a lot of us were not taught this. And so I want to be clear that loving yourself does not mean that you need to love everything about the way things are. And it certainly doesn't mean tolerating the things that aren't good for us. It simply means accepting the starting point that this is where you are at right now, which enables you to let go of the resistance, which actually keeps you stuck in those loops. So really finding this level of acceptance will actually empower you to be able to take responsibility and to show up for who you are being, which means taking the aligned action that's going to take you where you want to go. So, this involves stopping the shoulding on ourselves. It involves releasing any unnecessary expectations. And it might even actually involve redefining all of those things that you are striving for and seeking, because we often end up striving for and seeking things that are actually not what we want, but rather this based on this perception of what we should want or what society expects. Again, being stuck inside of that box of the good girl. And so if we want to have those things that we want to achieve, traditional success, happiness, confidence, peace, joy, all of these things, we really need to figure out our truths about what that looks like for us so that we can actually pursue and experience those things in our own unique way. Finding your unique truth, your inner truth, will actually help you to get a lot of clarity around your unique path and the aligned actions that you need to take in order to move you towards that result that you're truly desiring. And then developing those communication skills can be really helpful as well, so that you can not only understand with clarity your path, but also to communicate with other people where you're going, what you were doing, and what you need in order to get there in a confident manner. So, learning how to ask for what you want is crucial. And I just want to say that it's also incredibly more effective than wishing, hoping, and expecting other people to understand and know without your communication. It just doesn't work that way. And often we do try to do that. We try to do that through people pleasing, right? And overgiving. And more or less, people pleasing that comes with an expectation of receiving something in return, whether that just be simply that you make someone else happy or like you, is in effect an attempt at manipulation. Now, it's often not conscious. It's not like people go into it and be like, I'm going to people please them into liking me. But on a lower level, if you're doing things with an expectation of receiving in return, you're going to likely notice a lot of bitterness and resentment when those expectations go unmet. And so that is actually, sort of leading you down this path of a little bit of extra unnecessary suffering. And this wears you down, right? This makes you a lot less able to continue giving. It drains your energy. It drains your desire to continue giving. And it just plain feels crappy. The truth is, you're not for everyone. Not everyone is for you. And your people can actually only find you when you are being truly yourself. And there is a ton of freedom in finding and learning how to use your authentic voice to become fully expressed and sovereign in your being. And, I think women are fucking incredible. And it's really time that the world started to listen. So again, just building that relationship from the inside out is the way to start experiencing all of that love, that peace, the abundance, the joy, the happiness, the success, all of the things that you desire and deserve. And it's not always easy to face ourselves and do that work that helps us to connect with ourselves. but it is always worth it. Okay. That was a big one because I'm really passionate about that. And in fact, the theme of my podcast for the entire season 2 is actually about relationship with self, because I truly believe that self-love is the path to changing the world. Number 2, we need to challenge any limiting beliefs and mindsets. And there's obviously a ton of work to be done here around this good girl conditioning, because the first step is actually this awareness that this is where it's coming from. Now, we create our own experience of reality, and there's actually nothing of our experience of reality that exists outside of our perception of it. That is to say, everything is going through our filter, right? And so luckily, we're able to change and shift this filter if we don't kind of like the results that we're getting. But sometimes we're not even aware that that's possible. So, and when we're in that space, change can feel really scary. And we might have an emotional response that sort of keeps us recoiling back into our comfort zone. But luckily, we can create safety and we can shift this filter so that we can start having the experiences that we truly desire. And, oftentimes this response, this emotional response can really come from traumas, past experiences, small t traumas, big T traumas. And a lot of this conditioning that we may be carrying served us at one point. It kept us safe. It got us the result that we wanted and needed. And so we have continued to carry it. And the truth is, sometimes we can carry these things not knowing that they are actually really getting in our way. They're no longer serving us. And so we want to just really, to find a way to really embrace them, because when we can embrace that information, we can start to move forward. And skipping this safety component, if we're not doing that, can actually have us showing up in a few different ways. It can result in sort of this feeling of being unmotivated, not sure what to do. It can show up as self-sabotage, which in a nutshell, to me, is actually self-preservation. It is keeping yourself safe, bringing yourself back into the comfort zone, right? Where it's not as scary and it's familiar, because that is how our brain is designed to work. Our ego is in place to keep us safe. We can also just find ourselves like cock blocking ourselves and not taking the action that we know that we want to take. So if or one more scenario is that you actually find yourself getting results and then find yourself losing them in rapid succession, reverting back, hitting a limit, finding yourself reverting back to those old stories, habits, and limits. So one tool that I have created out of my own experience is what I call the spiral stopper method. And this is essentially a toolbox full of resources that can help you to shut down thought and emotional spirals, because I find as humans, we have this tendency to over-identify with our thoughts. First of all, a reminder, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. But while we start to practice creating this observer stance and this ability to look at our thoughts without expectations, without judgments, without all of these extra stories, we can use a little bit of help, because it's a habit. It's a habit to let those thoughts run wild. It's a habit to over-identify with them. And it is a habit to not interrupt them. And that's okay, because habits can be changed. So we want to basically enable your ability to use your free will, use your ability as a human to choose. And in order to do so, we need to be a little bit aware of what the options are, right? And then we can choose with intentionality which direction we want to take, how we want to respond, who we want to show up as. And this is how you can take back your power and respond from, a place of intention versus reacting out of survival mode or autopilot. Basically, from this calmer space where we're not so inundated with all of the thoughts and the emotions and the stories and the judgments, then we can really take the time to start looking at those limiting beliefs that have been instilled, those things that you may have even taken on board as your truth. And you might notice them as a loop. They might be playing over and over, or they might be brought to your attention by being activated through an emotional response in your body. People call this being triggered, right? And so either way, when we notice these thoughts coming up, if they're not serving us, it's time to shift away from them and let them go. So if they're coming up for you to notice so that you can transform them and move forward without limit. And honestly, without taking the time, if you're unable to create that space between your thoughts, the initial survival reaction is going to take over. So what we want to do is just bring ourselves a little bit more awareness so that we can actually take a moment and recognize where it's coming from. Then we can actually challenge ourselves and get in a better place of alignment so that we can move forward as our authentic self without the limits. And I kind of think of this as this is a term I coined yesterday in a conversation with someone, and I actually really liked it. So I wrote it down to remember, because this is just honestly the way that I go about things, which is winging it on purpose. And this is just to say, I don't have all the answers. The accountant version of me, the earlier accountant, analytical, logical mind version of me, holy shit, they loved that version of Christy, loved to have everything mapped out and have a whole plan so that we could just step by step get it done. But the truth is, the more I've moved into this idea of like winging it on purpose, which means I do have an end idea, an intention, a desire to make this massive impact, but I don't have all of the steps laid out. And I am just here to honestly take each step at a time and allow myself to remain sort of unattached to how the process will unfold, and just basically allowing the beautiful journey to unfold magically as we go. So winging it on purpose. Honestly, it's about the journey, not the destination anyways. All right. Shifting those limiting beliefs, mindsets, judgments, attachments, etc., is absolutely life-changing. So that was number 2. Number 3, we talked about the more or less the thoughts, and we touched a little bit on the emotions because they can be sort of interconnected. And so number 3 is honestly about connecting with your emotions so that you can find balance and alignment. So good girls are often taught to be quite passive, right? To avoid conflict, to not show too much expression, too much emotions. We're told that we're too much and to tone it down. And this ultimately isn't actually a reflection of you at all. This is actually a projection of the people who just simply don't have the capacity to deal with those emotions. They weren't taught. And so when we don't have the skills and abilities to deal with our own difficult emotions, we do not have the capacity to hold space for others as they process big emotions. Now, as a parent, this has been a huge lesson that I've had to learn, because it can be really challenging to face those big emotions coming from another person and not take it personally. So sometimes we actually even end up closing ourselves off emotionally in order to avoid pain, disappointment, suffering, and so forth. And in other situations, we actually can end up really blowing up and catastrophizing all of those things, all of those emotions inside of our mind, making them bigger than they actually are meant to be. The truth is, our emotions are energy in motion. They are meant to be felt and experienced. And in fact, they actually act as an inner barometer that will help you to recognize what is for you and what isn't for you. It can help direct you along your path. But so many of these big emotions that crop up, they suck us into a bit of a spiral, right? We can end up attaching meanings, judgments, stories, and all of these things usually drug up from our past about what they might mean about us. And so when we do that, first of all, most of those things probably aren't true. They are probably, not serving us. And they're probably just living out, repeating on autopilot. So by learning how to stop the spiral, using the spiral stopper method, you can create the space so that you can feel your emotions without getting wrapped up into them. This way you can recognize the wisdom that they hold for you. And that way you can use this wisdom and it will actually help to aid your healing and growth and take you forward in your evolution. Again, remember, you're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. You are the observer of them. Self-compassion is really important here because we do tend to be our own worst critic. But we can learn how to bring our mind, body, and soul into a coherence, into unity. And this actually helps us to be much more connected. It helps us to focus inward where we actually can affect the biggest change. And it can reduce a lot of truly unnecessary suffering and pain in our life. Number 4, embracing failure. Now, again, I talked about a little bit before, but this idea of the good girl needing to strive for perfection. And some of us are like, fuck it, we can't. It's impossible. Maybe those folks are a little smarter than the rest of us that have spent so long striving for perfection, because the truth is perfection doesn't actually exist. There is no one definition of perfection. The way I see it, we are both perfect and imperfect. We're perfectly imperfect just as we are. We are both and everything in between. But this idea of having to strive to be perfect, to measure up. Anybody feel the weight of this? Does anybody else feel this need to be perfect and measure up and not fall short? Honestly, this this illusion that we need to be perfect can really hold us back. It can stop us from taking healthy risks and embracing new opportunities, which is really unfortunate because we really miss out on what is meant for us in life. And embracing failure is actually a crucial step in your learning and growth journey. Ultimately, recognizing that failure is not a reflection of your worth or your abilities at all. You're worthy simply because you exist, and you don't actually need to earn your worth or prove your value or any of these things. But instead, taking a different perspective around our mistakes can really open up a world of freedom for us. Ultimately, our mistakes are simply feedback. Our so-called failures are simply feedback, creating an opportunity for us to learn, to improve, to become more resilient. Now, nobody's perfect because that's not possible. You're also not broken. You don't need fixing. You are already a whole ass human. It's just that we often kind of forget, or sometimes even intentionally reject some parts of our wholeness. The more we resist, the more we actually struggle against. And so by surrendering and accepting what is, you can start to find that peace and clarity around what it is that you truly desire. And now that is not for anyone else, but just for you. And when you realize that everybody makes mistakes and they are a necessary part of our evolution, you can give other people compassion when they make mistakes. And you can absolutely stop giving yourself so much shit for messing up. You're only human after all. Number 5, surround yourself with empowering influences. This is how we can more quickly reclaim our power, because the people we surround ourselves with have a significant impact on our mindset and beliefs. They can bring us up and they can absolutely bring us down. So especially important if you're intending to make a shift to create new beliefs, new mindsets, and develop this and grow a healthy relationship with yourself, you are going to be able to go further, faster, more efficiently, and with more fun, more play, more ease, all of this good stuff, more love and acceptance as you yourself learn how to embrace this from within. So surrounding yourself with those people who empower you, who support you, who hold a safe space for you as you do this work, which it is your work, right? Our work is our own work. We can't change anyone else. We can't do the work for someone else. We have to show up and do it for ourselves. But it's better when we have company, when we have support, when we have love around us. And so seeking out a mentor, a coach, or other like-minded friends that can provide a safe, non-judgmental, unconditionally loving and accepting space for you so that you can explore and rediscover yourself, strip away the conditioning that is no longer serving you, and building in new habits, new mindsets, and new patterns so that, you have that guidance, so that you have that encouragement. And for some of us, we need a little bit of extra accountability so that we can go out and do the thing that we want to do. So I just want to sort of wrap up with a couple of last thoughts. Number one, I just want to tell you all, you are more than good enough, just as you are. You are also more than deserving of having every single last one of those dreams come true. And as women are rising up and finding their voice and sharing it across the world, they are using their stories, they're turning their mess into a message of impact. They are turning their struggle into their story that is able to show others the possibilities of overcoming and creating a ripple effect of change throughout the world. And in fact, through learning to love and accept themselves, people everywhere are changing the world from the inside out. And if you're kind of ready to let go of this good girl conditioning, or your response to the good girl conditioning, whether that be fitting the mold or breaking the mold, whether you're ready to step out of that, or when you're ready to step out of that and into your power as a conscious creator, now's the time. And if you need a little bit of extra support, I have a few amazing tools for you. Number one, you can grab a free chapter of my book, Unstuck for Women. And if you want to check it out, that free chapter, I'm going to pop the link below in the comments, and you can grab that free chapter and see if this book is for you. It's a little taste to see what it is all about. The second amazing resource is another completely free resource. I would invite you to tune into my podcast, Create Your Happy, for a ton of inspiring stories of women overcoming. The episodes are packed full of nuggets of wisdom and inspiration, along with practical action steps that you can use today to deepen your connection with self and truly step into your power as a conscious creator. And of course, if you're ready to go even deeper and do the work to figure out which particular limitations, mindsets, beliefs, stories, etc., are tripping you up, I have a course and I have some coaching available. So if you're ready to shake that good girl conditioning for good, feel free to shoot me a DM and we'll have a no obligation chat to see if working with me could help you potentially accomplish all of those things that you want to do. All right. I love you. Now let's go do some epic shit, shall we? Mwah.